Good morning, people. This is Mac. Today I have with me Bob, and we're going to discuss one of the issues that's becoming a hot topic over the last year or so. It's always been around for a number of for a long time, but it's getting picking up maybe a little bit momentum in the last year, and it's reparations. At the start of Black History Month last year, over 350 groups urged the U.S. House leadership to back H.R. 40. That's the House Representative Bill 40. This would create a commission to study legacy of enslavement and develop reparations proposals. Now, that was on February the 4th, 2022. Speaker Nancy Pelosi was sent this letter along with House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer and House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn, as well as the House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. And it was referenced repair can't wait, immediately pass H.R. 40, the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposal for African Americans Act. Uh, this isn't anything new here. I believe Representative Lee, she picked up the mantle from after John Conyers retired. I believe I don't know whether it was 2017 or when he actually passed. But she picked up that mantle because just to continue with the reparation, H.R. 40, which John Conyers first submitted it in 1989. And each year after that, for 30 years, he resubmitted H.R. 40. Now, Bob, what do you think will come of this? What is happening right now with HR with the reparations?
Well, thank you, Mac. Uh, I listened very carefully to what you just read about HR 40. And it occurs to me that when Congressman Conyers introduced that back in the year that you suggested, I think you said 89. It's
Yes.
been more than 30 years.
Yeah.
And then this other person took it up in February, Black History Week of this year. And it just occurred to me that that HR 40 puts together a commission to study reparations. I think that was the wording that you read, and I just thought about the fact that it was in February that that the Putin invaded the Ukraine, and now just a couple of weeks ago they gave Ukraine $100 billion to fight with Putin, and the American Congress didn't need a piece of legislation to study whether or not to give Ukraine that $100 billion. On the other hand, 40 years ago, a black uh, uh, Negroid congressman from Michigan, and he was my congressman, John Conyers. a very alert individual, I thought, uh, was not able to get that legislation passed to put any money on that. They put together a commission to study. Whereas when it comes time for the Caucasoid from the Ukraine, they don't put together any commission to study anything. They just go ahead and write the check for $100 billion, and those people in the Ukraine haven't lifted one finger to do anything to put this country together like it is today. And I'm sure Congressman Conyers was aware of this when he put forward that HR 40, uh, because if you look at, let me give you this little simple analogy. If you're going to build a house like the Three Little Pigs, you build a house on a solid foundation. And this country was built on a solid foundation of cotton on the backs of black slaves, a solid foundation over 400 years ago. And then fast forward the tape to today, and you see what you have going on. You have supposedly the richest nation in the world built on the foundation of black people brought here, and they didn't request to be brought here, but they built this foundation, and now you have this beautiful house that everybody's living in, and everybody can go to the to the owner of the house and say, "Look, we need $5 to go get a quart of milk," but you can't go back. That slave whose back this house sets on cannot go to the house and get $5 or even get 5 cents to get any help. That to me is the argument between reparations and blank checks for Caucasoids versus no checks for Negroids. And it's a sad commentary. And Mac, I say this as a true blue, red, and white American, proud to be an American, but it's a travesty. It's shameful. Those black people, that Miss Lee, and all of these Congress people that are pretending to want to help descendants of black slaves in this country by putting together a commission. How much is that commission worth? Those white people, those Caucasoids over there in the Ukraine, they didn't say bring me no commission. They said bring me the money, show me the money, and that's what they got. And and we just continue to get slapped around, and it's a shame. It's a travesty. It's a ruse.
Well, I
It's a
understand.
political ruse, and it's shameful. And
I
we need
understand.
to stop this, Mac.
Right. Well, you know what exactly what you're saying, Bob, is I can understand and I hear that frustration there, and with a disappointment. I won't call it disappointment, but the frustration of how you feel about these elected leaders that we have in this country.
It is disappointment. You used the right word.
You know, but one of the things that that's so that's about this whole thing that really touch base with is that right now, as of that when this letter was written to those House leadership people, there were over 350 groups that signed on to that letter. I mean, and the thing it is, I was just amazed at the different groups there. There were Jewish organizations, there were Japanese organizations, Filipino organizations, uh, the just Asian organizations, and of course many other diverse organizations with many, the black organizations many of those, and many other different types of organizations out there that supported this. There were even individuals like Danny Glover signed on to it, I believe. There were corporations that may have signed on to that as well. Some may have. And then we had, but then when you go back, Bob, and you look at what they have here as far as the when you go back and look at the polls, what people like, I think we got Pure Research here had a poll. Black and white Americans are far apart in their views of reparations for slavery. And and I'm gonna just go through this right quick here. It said there's atonement for the enslavement of black Americans have a long history in the United States, and efforts toward reparation for slavery and racial discrimination have moved forward in some places in recent years. They say in 2021, Evanston, Illinois became the first U.S. city to create a reparation plan for its black residents. California that year set up the nation's first state-level reparation task force. And right now, I understand California this year, just recently, they have passed some type of reparations, and they are working on now trying to work out the details of how the blacks in California should be compensated. But that's in progress as we speak now. The American view the prospects, as they state here in the Pure Research, of reparation mostly negatively. That's what the Pure Research found. 3 in 10 U.S. adults say descendants of people enslaved in the U.S. should be repaid in some way, such as given land or money. About 7 in 10, 68%, said these descendants should not be repaid. And we'll look at now 77% of black Americans, compared with 18% of white Americans, support reparation for descendants of enslaved people. And then they have it down here by white, black, Hispanic, Asians. Hispanics don't think we should get anything. The Asians, at least 58%. Asians, 65%. Of course, you see blacks say 70%. 80% of whites don't think so. And then you look at the age groups, and you see 18 to 29, 52 say no versus 45. So it's going back to something you said earlier, Bob. As this thing goes on and the population, the younger population begin to grow older, then these figures will become more favorable towards reparations. But right now, it doesn't look like that. But this hits right on to what we was talking about earlier, about how the reparations has to be based on what the people in the United States think. And if there's not a consensus of people wanting this, then we don't get it. But I don't know about that, Bob, because I think it's up to it should be if we ran by democracy, but where we ran by democracy, when they approved the LGBT and same-sex marriage and all of that, I don't think we had a majority in these United States that supported anything like that. What do you think on that, Bob, as you compare this to reparations here? Do you think that we really need a majority of the American population here to support reparations before the Congress or the Senate will do what they should be doing, giving out some type of reparation and passing a bill that would do something to alleviate the discrimination that blacks have received over the years, not just from the slavery, but from the Jim Crowe. And one of the things that popped in my mind just now is that in 1862, I believe it was, they had the Homestead Act where they gave 160 acres of land to people who would go out west and settle out there. But they would not give blacks any. They couldn't participate in that. So back to that. So what do you think will happen here, Bob? Do you think that we will need a majority of the American population before the Senate and the Congress do anything?
Well, well, first of all, into your question, absolutely not. And you don't ever need a so-called majority. That's the political ruse that is played on us and the masses of people when they want to get things done. What was the majority of people to give that $100 billion to Ukraine?
Right.
How many people they didn't take a referendum on that. You know, they don't vote. The only time they really take a referendum or an election or a vote is when they want to make it appear that this democracy it's such a ruse. It's such a political ruse. It is such a shame. But when they want to make it appear that we're doing this because 51% of the people want this, that's a lot of nonsense. And I think that that we will just continue to be asleep at the switch and will allow this to continue to happen. I don't think that we will ever see. And well, first of all, let me say this: were the majority of people in favor of giving the Japanese reparations for the land and so forth that had been taken from them after they had been put in internment camps, when monies were written, when the check was written to give them back their land or as much as they could figure out what belonged to whom, and the checks that went to people were the majority of the people that did that. And today, to this very day, the so-called indigenous people, the American Indian, the Native American, what about their property and the oil and the gold? Did the majority of the American people have to agree to that? And they still are not being favorably treated for the thievery that has taken place in their communities. So this ruse, this political ruse, which is put out here to make it appear that all of us agree to pay reparations, to do good things for the Indians, and to give Black Americans, so-called African Americans, so-called Negroes, so-called colored people, give them reparations. We're going to put together a commission to study whether or not they should get what is rightfully their own, because they helped build this place. But on the other hand, there's a race of a Caucasoid race of people way on the other side of the globe, or the other side of the planet, that have never lifted one finger to do anything about putting this country together. And we just write the check for $100 billion for them because they're like us. Those that control this political rules of manipulation to make most of us think that's what we all want. And you see it every day. I see it every day on TV. These talking heads, these people that work for those that sign off on the check to give that Caucasoid group $100 billion. And I will go to my grave with this thought in my mind.
Right.
The black man, so-called Negro, so-called colored, so-called African American will never, ever get a valid payment for all the work that he and she has done to make this country what it is today. And that's a shame. It's a shame on this house.
Well,
And I don't know any other way to say it, Mac.
well, you know, a lot of the Republicans and even some Democrats also, uh, like McConnell says, say, hey, he doesn't go along with that. He's the minority whip in the Senate, or the Republican leader there. He said that he wasn't around during the slavery, so he shouldn't have to pay for something. Say we've already done. We passed the Civil Rights Act. Uh, we fought the Civil War to free the slaves, so we shouldn't have to do anything else. But yet, after the Civil War, they instituted uh, the they never gave us any reparation. They gave reparations to the slave holders. They gave reparation to the in those states right around Washington D.C. All the slave holders after the Civil War were paid, given reparations for having lost all their slaves. And the same thing happened in the southern states as well. But the blacks, what they created was the sharecropping system where they simply put blacks right back into slavery because they never got, they never shared, they were supposed to share like 50-50 with the crops when they sold the crops because the blacks was out working in the fields. But they never got that. They give them 5%. Oh, we didn't sell enough. Bales of hay, of cotton would disappear. All these things happen, Bob. And so they ask these questions, why do they need reparations? Well, we never had the opportunity to accumulate wealth like they do. And as one spokesperson at the hearing for reparation before the Congress stated, something to this effect that if a person I think Malcolm X said if you stick a person if he stabs you and then he pulls the knife out halfway out, that hasn't done anything for you. But even if he pulled the knife all the way out, that's not gonna do anything either for that wound. It's only what's gonna help that wound if he go in there and medicate that wound and try to bandage it up and try to heal it, from the outside. And this is exactly what's been happening with us. I mean, they have not given us a level playing field out here. I mean, even when we were trying to do things and accumulate wealth in this country, just within our own communities, like the name of a few, the Wilmington situation, the Tulsa, Oklahoma situation, the Rosewood, Florida situation, the Atlanta or Georgia situation, where all these places was one way or the other burned down or destroyed, and and all these people lost all of this land. And then you go back and you look at over the years, where they've shown where over 24,000 acres of land were taken from blacks and given to whites. And they say in Virginia there's a golf club, country club on some of that on a certain piece of land up there that was taken from blacks. So we've never really had a equal playing field here to accumulate wealth. Even in trying to buy houses in this country, they set up the land contract where blacks would be paying contract to I saw one situation where the person that he didn't even own the property, but he was like a middleman, and he had the contract with the blacks who came to this particular area there in Chicago, North Line, I believe it was, and they would pay him a certain amount of money every month for the property there, and then if they missed one payment, he would snatch up the property and evict them, and then he would go and find another black to start the process all over after he's taken thousands of dollars from their first black. And sometimes they may go through 5 different owners in that particular house like that. I mean, blacks who was paying thinking they were becoming owners, but they never were because the deed was never in their names. So I mean, it's these type of things that's been going on, Bob. That calls for some type of reparation here, and even today there you still have current discrimination that's going on, and and no matter how you look at it, Bob, I guess we could beat on this a little bit, but the wealth of the United States, as you pointed out, it was greatly enhanced now by the exploitation of the free African American labor in those cotton fields. And some even argue that it is the bedrock for the U.S. economy and capitalism. Now, but the former slaves and their descendants did not participate in any of that. So here you got all these people that they gave these lands going out west there, and you got hundreds of thousands of whites in this country are still reaping benefits from the wealth that was obtained from those lands back in the 1800s that the whites had the opportunity to get, and it's no different now. I mean, blacks go out and in many instances go out and try to borrow money for a business. They're discriminated against.
Well, I think that if you go back and you look at those numbers on that poll that you spoke of earlier, I think the number was 18% of the whites thought that reparations was a fair accommodation for the Negroid here in America, and 77% of Negroids thought that they should get it. And you know what? When you were reading that, I was thinking, and I hope those were the correct numbers. But anyway, the point is,
that's correct.
The point is that 23% of blacks didn't think that we should be reimbursed for all of the work that we've done, and 88% of the other and Caucasoids didn't think that we should be reimbursed for all of the work that we've done, and it just occurs to me that there's a certain fairness in the hearts of some Caucasoid people, that 18%. I would just have to conclude that their hearts must be right, and 77% of the Negroids' hearts must be right, because there's a certain sense of fairness that they probably have taken in their hearts because of their Christian belief, to treat their brother and sister with a sense of fairness. But most of the 88% and the 33%, uh, and I'm getting my numbers confused here. But anyway, my point is this: until you can sway, and it goes back to the point that you were making earlier about a democracy and 51%. Until you can get 51% of whites or Caucasoids and 51% of Negroids to agree that former slaves, descendants of former slaves, are entitled to be able to sit at the table and buy the same hamburger and fries that the Caucasoid next to them can afford to purchase. Until you get that in their hearts and that sense of fairness, you'll be getting commissions to study how come they don't want to do this, which would be the fair thing to do. Because that's all that commission of HR 40 is going to do. It'll come up with all kinds of flowery language, talk about how bad it was for the slave and so forth. But as far as being fair, they will not write the $100 billion check for the slave in this country like they do for the slave descendant in this country, like they do for the Caucasoid who was the descendant of the slave owner in this country. Those people that they're giving that money to, many of their families have migrated to this country over the many years that Negroids were out there working in the field, putting that cotton bale together for the foundation of this house. And today, like you say, that guy McConnell, he says, "Oh, I didn't have nothing to do with that." Well, when they were giving out quarter sections, those 160-acre plots, I'll bet you some of his descendants and relatives got some of that land. And when Sherman came up with Field Order 1535, I think it was, to give 40 acres and a mule, or eighth of a section, a 16th of a section, a 16th of a section to former slaves. And that racist president, Andrew Johnson, said, "Oh no, we can't do that." Because there was no fairness in his heart. You got white people today, 2022, who still don't have fairness in their heart. Their hearts are just like Andrew Johnson's was. Those 18%ers were probably like Sherman.
Well,
He knew that the people had to have something to start with. You don't give a man and tell him to go pull himself up by his bootstraps when he's walking around with bare feet. That's just common sense.
right. Well,
You see?
right.
So I don't want to go off on a diatribe, Mac, but it's very hard. It's very disheartening. And I've seen it throughout my life. And at this point, I'm not going to hold my tongue. When I see these inequities, these criminals, so-called political leaders, continuing to foist a thieverous ruse on the mass of the people that don't understand and see it happening, I'm not going to allow myself anymore to be kowtowed by their mischievous and thieverous behavior. So
Yeah.
I don't mean to be disruptive on your podcast, but it's very disheartening, and our people are lost. I had a professor once Dr. Melvin Barnabas Tolson. He told me, he said, Brazelton, our people are lost because they are ignorant. And that was in 1961 when he said that to me. And here it is in 2022. And our people are still lost back
Right.
because we are ignorant.
Well, like on that point about what you were talking about people not being in their heart. U.S. Representative Jim Jordan, he's the top Republican on that committee. Uh, he dismissed the proposed commission, noting that 15 members would be appointed by Democrats or by the commission director as long as they come from organizations that support reparations, he said. Why the heck do we need to spend $20 million, Jordan said, referring to the commission's budget? We know what these 15 members are going to say. Spend $20 million for a commission that's already decided to take money from people who were never involved in this evil of slavery and give it to people who were never subject to the evil of slavery. I mean, it's all about education, Bob. But it even goes down when you get a Utah representative who's also a Republican by the name of Burgess Owens. He opposed reparations, saying that would lead to redistribution of wealth or socialism. He argued Wednesday that the black community is now living the American dream, though though the middle class it has through the middle class it has developed over generations. Now this now he said slavery was and still is an evil, said Owens, who is black. Reparation is divisive. It speaks to the fact that we are a hapless, hopeless race that never did anything but wait for white people to show up and help us. And it's a falsehood. I mean, this guy here he is out there in Utah surrounded by whites, so he has to speak like that. Else he won't keep his seat, right? But I mean, as if though, I mean, we don't have to go through the litany of things to see the repressive things and oppressive things also that has happened to blacks for generations and decades and even centuries. We don't have to go through all of those things, Bob. We can see it today and seeing what's happening out here in this society that, like for instance, I just saw a case uh, uh, that I will probably talk about soon, next day or so, where this police officer he just shot this woman through the window. This was several years ago, but he got convicted. Received about 11 years in jail, I believe that's what they said. But I mean, he walks around the house and just boom blows her away. There's another situation where the where this guy was speeding down the highway, and the state police got behind him, and they got him on a chase there. But when they caught up with him, they had about 6 or 7 state troopers there in Louisiana. And what did they do? They beat him to death. And one of them that beat him bragged about how he beat the F out of him, and he went limp on him. You know, and I mean, and you talk about, and these are the same mindset of people, Bob. They all in all the halls of government. They're all over. They same mindset where a black man's life means nothing. Whereas we talking about for them to give us reparations for what their cruelties and the despicable things that they did to black people in this country, and stop them at every and destroyed any wealth that they ever began to gain out of envy, jealousy, or whatever. and but these are the mindset of people we have to deal with, like that Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. He made the statement reparation for something that happened 150 years ago for whom none of us currently living are responsible is not a good idea. We've tried to deal with our original sin of slavery by fighting a civil war, by passing landmark civil rights legislation. We've elected an African American president, McConnell said. I think we've always a work in progress in this country, but no one currently alive was responsible for that. And his he could trace his parents' ancestors back to being slave owners, Bob, right there in Kentucky. And yet he's going to say, well, you're not responsible, but yet you reap the benefit. It's sort of like you saying, Bob, if I go out there and rob a bank, and I take that money I get from that bank, and I go and I start a business, and I robbed the bank back in 1950, and I started this business in 1960 with the proceeds from that bank robbery. And this now the business is worth several $billions. And my kids are living the life of Riley, you know?
Right.
So you mean to say that then that you have no responsibility for that? All those horses and stuff you got there in Kentucky or whatever he has there, it's all a result of
Right.
what was given to him. So they all speak with forked, as the idiot said, tongues, Bob. But
All right, and that's precisely right. I mean, and as I say, I've seen it all my life, and it is very disappointing. It's very frustrating because I know that the hearts of many Americans, like the 18, I'm going to start calling them the 18 percenters, are good hearts, and they want to do what their God of their understanding tells them to do about this descendant of former slaves. They want to do the right thing, but they got 82% of people who pretend they're like the Pharisees and the Sadducees of biblical times. The 82 percenters who don't want to do right. They talk a good game, and as Jesus said, they stand on a corner and pretend like that guy McConnell that you're talking about, that they're such, and they have high and flowery speeches to make about how they're for this and how they're for justice and how they're for right. But when you open up their heart, it's nothing but evil. Nothing but evil. And when you see this in people, because when you see people walking down the street, we all pretty much look the same with the exception of the concentration of melanin in our system. But you can't tell what's in that man or woman's heart or in their mind until they start to articulate it. And when they start articulating it, if their behavior is different from the speech that they give, then you know that they are working for evil and not for good. And 82% of the people in this country, Caucasoids, are speaking with evil in their hearts and in their minds. And that's a shame. That's the reason this country is having the difficulty that it has.
right,
I think you pointed it out several days ago. That's why today they can justify shooting a woman through a window, but and it's, oh, that was such an atrocious act. When behind the doors they're saying, "Go get those niggers." Hey, it's okay to hang them. Where's the nearest oak tree?
yeah,
When you see them in public, they're in their pinstripe suits, their starched shirts, and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm your best friend, Bob." is steady sticking a dagger in your back. And it's about time that our leaders, the 21st century slave descendants, that our 21st century slave leadership began to speak up and tell us about these facts. Not like that guy out there in Utah, because back
Yeah.
the Mormons are some of the most racist Caucasoid people on the planet. I think it's only been within the last 40, 50 years that they would even let a black man be a part of their clergy.
Right. But
They saw it as descendants of the devil.
exactly. But
You know,
there's one person though. Her name was Pramila, Representative Pramila Jayapal. Uh, that's Jayapal. I hope I pronounced that right. She's a Democrat from Washington, and she directed her remarks at her GOP colleagues, and she said those same ones, like the one I just quoted. You seem to really not get this. Reparations are not about punishment, but uh, reparative justice, she said.
yes,
It's to repair something that was done, to reimburse people for what they did. If you go back and, I mean, they get they I mean they estimate that what's due blacks from somebody saying 2 point some $billion all the way up to 2 or 3 trillion dollars. You know what I mean?
yes, sure.
And and I hope that something do come about on this, Bob. But I think one of the main thing that and I'm talking to the people that in the audience that's listening, is that we should be writing our congressperson and our senators and tell them to support reparations. And that's what we need to do. And join some of these organizations. You can find these organizations online. If you go and you look up the start the bill, the letter from that was given to the House leadership. If you start there and look for that letter, you will see, and it's referenced the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act. And you can find these organizations. You can find one in there that you might fit with you. Like I told you, there's many different minorities are supporting this, and they see what they know what blacks have done. They see how blacks are suffering economically in this country, and what they'll say, well, you had a black president, like McConnell said.
Right, but I think that's an excellent thought. That if we could, because I remember, because I was a part of it, I went on a number of marches with a person that I consider the first saint that I have seen in my lifetime, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I marched with him here in Detroit when he came to Detroit, when he gave the I Have a Dream speech here in Detroit before he gave it in Washington, as a matter of fact. But that's off the subject. My point is this. The point that you make about contacting these representatives, the 21st century slave descendant leadership, contact them by whatever platform you have, writing, calling, if you know them personally, look them in the eye and tell them, look, it's time for black people to stop falling for that old political rules of a commission. You didn't put together a commission for the white Caucasoid people over there in Ukraine. You wrote them $100 billion check, and you're going to continue writing them checks. I saw a Caucasoid expert say, because the guy asked him, well, do you think that this will be the last? He said, oh, no. They'll be coming back for more money probably every 2 months. So if that's true, let's say by the end of 2023, that's 12 months. That'll be another 20 to 30 billion dollars.
Well,
$130 billion over a
well,
period of
well,
another year.
well. Right now, the the munition companies, they can't make enough rounds to fast enough to get them over there to them. They're using 6,000 missiles a month or something like that. I mean, a week. some
Right.
some as
And that's my point. And a lot of that money that they're getting, because I heard another guy say that all of that is not for munitions. Some of it is to go into people's pockets. So
oh
if they
yeah.
could give them 30 or 40 billions of dollars to go in their pockets to keep their checkbooks black,
Well, Bob, it's sort of
they
like this. Well, it's sort of like this here. Let me just break that down for you. If you if you over there doing fighting a proxy war, doing everything whatever they tell you to do, like this guy Zelensky is doing for the allies or whoever you want to for the West, put it like that. He's doing everything they tell him to do. Now, don't you think he's going to feel like he's entitled to some money to be paid for that? And he's going to, and one way or the other, either you're going to give it straight up to him by putting it in his Swiss account or Cayman Island account or wherever, or he's just going to siphon some off from there and take some of those ammunition and sell them over to some other third world country, you know?
uh-huh.
That's how that's going to happen, Bob. That's how it works. It works like that. Either they're going to pay him or he's going to get it one way or the other. But I appreciate you coming on this afternoon, Bob, to let us try to take a delve into this here reparations. It's really very complicated because they make it complicated, you know, just like you were saying, you know. But it's very simple, like you were saying. The only thing they got to do is like what they did to all these other countries that like Israel, they send them billions of dollars every year over there, you know.
Yes.
They don't, that's automatically approved, right? Maybe if they want to go on a payment plan with us, they can do that too, you know. And maybe they want to give blacks a state, the ones who want to live there, or give them the opportunity to say, okay, if you want to go back to, because Ghana and other countries over there, Ghana even giving you land and citizenship if you come over there, African Americans. So anybody that decide they want to leave the country, give them $1 million, you know, and and they can go. And the other ones come up with some other plans. They treat the other ones who want to stay behind here in this country, you know,
Yeah, right.
whatever they want, you know, come up with a plan to compensate them. But anyway, Bob, I want to give you a big shout out.
Well, back, I
gave us,
I would say this in my closing remarks. I as much as I would like to see it happen, I'd like to see him write each one of us $1 million check, but I don't think we'll even get a $10 check. Because we're not a priority. We've always, since we've been here, we've been the lowest on the totem pole, and we're still the lowest on the rung of the ladder or the totem pole. and we're going to stay there. I mean, something has to be the base, and we're the base. We're the foundation. We built this place on our backs, and they're going to keep it on our backs while they continue to strive up the ladder and get to the top where there's success. We won't ever know that as a race, Many of us will know it as individuals, but as a race, we will never know that. And that's a shame.
Well, maybe not in our lifetime, Bob, but I think what goes up comes down. That's history has proven that time and time again. So and you got to go back and look at our history didn't start in 1619. With slavery
Right.
or whatever. Our history started way back, even way before the Egyptian, where we blacks were the original Egyptians. And they don't want to. Some Egyptians accept that, while others may not accept it. But the facts and everything speaks for themselves. When you go and look at the artifacts and the archaeological findings and everything, and look at the pictures and things over there that the people wrote, drew and everything. So there's no doubt about it. We will we will rise again. Maybe not in our lifetime, but maybe in our grandkids' lifetimes. But the thing is, I want to thank everybody for coming on and listening to us, and give us your thoughts on in the comments section. What do you think about reparation? And what role are you taking in it right now? What are you doing to try to make this come to a fruition? Are you writing your congressperson? So write to us and let us know what your thoughts are, and maybe we'll come back and we'll talk more about this in another episode. But right now, I want you to subscribe and leave your comments. Please subscribe to this channel. Appreciate it. And you have a great rest of your day, and we hope to talk to you soon. Thanks a lot, Bob.
You're welcome, Matt.